All right, good afternoon. Thanks for coming. We appreciate your time today. My name's Jason Matura. I'm a funeral pre-planner. I'm an independent funeral pre-planner. I'm licensed in the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin to set up irrevocable funeral trusts and insurance policies. That's all I do. I don't actually take care of the funerals. That's a funeral director job. All I do is meet with you and help your family plan things. I love what I do. Been doing it for about 8 years, and working with veterans, things like that's one of the best things we can do. What we're going to do today is talk a little bit about the benefits of pre-planning your funeral. What is it? Why does it make sense? Why should I consider doing it for my loved ones? I'm going to show you some unique caskets and visitations for entertainment value. It also says it's my funeral. Make it your own. No pun intended. If it's something you want to do and you can pay for it and it's legal, we'll help you do it. And as an independent, we have everyone's price list in the state. We're able to bring true objectiveness to this and compare and contrast. When you go to one funeral home, they're going to say, we're the best, come here. Well, is that true or not? I'll let you be the judge. Just like plumbers or electricians, there's good ones and there's bad ones and everything in between. And that's where we can come in and help your family. So first off, I want to start by talking about veterans benefits. We probably have a few veterans in here. How many do we have? Okay, well, thank you very much for your service to our country. It's because of what you've done that I'm able to stand up here, give my presentation, take my girlfriend out to dinner, do things like that, and live our life. So sincere gratitude to the veterans. I really appreciate it. Now, veterans benefits. There's a lot of myths about what's covered out there, what isn't covered. A lot of people think you may get a free casket, free burial, different things like that. The first thing we need to have is what's called your DD-214. A lot of you are familiar with that. DD-214, that's your honorable discharge paper, your separation of service. That shows you had a separation from the military that was honorable. That's going to get you any benefits at the VA. As far as benefits go, if you have that honorable discharge, you're entitled to burial benefits. That includes a grave space for you and your spouse, up to 5 dependent children. It can be in any of the 135 national cemeteries that we have available, the government. And an easy way to think of it is everything from the gates in at the cemetery is paid for. They're going to give you a space, open and closing of the grave, a marker. The veteran goes on the front of the marker, the spouse goes on the back, and they're also going to provide what's called a grave liner. That's similar to a vault, but that's what the casket goes into. All said and done, it can result in about a $3,000 to $5,000 savings per person. So if you're a veteran, this is something you really want to consider looking at. They're beautiful cemeteries. They keep them top-notch. They look very nice, and they're going to be kept that way for a long time. So I really would urge you to consider that. If there's any other questions or information needed about veterans benefits, I can answer for you, or we can connect you with a Veterans County Service Officer. Okay? All right, so now we'll talk about pre-planning. So pre-planning. First, I'm just going to read a little bit here from a Dear Abby article that we put in the presentation here. A lot of people grew up reading it, are familiar with it. That's why it's in here. And I'll read this to you here. It says, sound advice from someone you can trust. Dear Abby, parents' plans ease burdens at funeral. Dear Abby, my mother recently passed away. She had led a long, happy life and was greatly loved. Years ago, both my parents had the foresight to pre-plan and prepay all their funeral arrangements. All Dad and the family had to do for Mother's service was order flowers. Then we were able to welcome and share condolences with more than 500 guests. It made her funeral a beautiful time of reuniting old friends and family. Our freedom to share great memories was exactly what Mom and Dad had planned. The arrangements were impressive. Their gift of pre-planning and prepaying is something we should all consider doing for our loved ones. And then I'll read you the response here. Dear daughter, although it's difficult to contemplate death, facing the fact that no one lives forever and planning ahead can prevent a world of confusion for grieving relatives at a time when they're most vulnerable. Your parents' pre-planning was wise, thoughtful, and a godsend during your time of grief. So just some good advice. Thought we'd put that in there. Like I said, a lot of people grew up reading the column. They're familiar with it. So we'll move on here. The time to talk about a funeral is before you have to. Okay, I'm going to say that again. The time to talk about the funeral is before you have to. Children have told us one of the nicest things their parents have done for them was to pre-plan and prepay their funerals. Something we hear all the time at funeral homes. Mom and dad picked everything out. They even paid for it. All we had to do is tell the funeral home where we wanted the service and show up. It was that simple. And that's the way this should work. There's about 150 questions that need to be answered when we're planning a funeral. And you don't want to do that when you've lost the person most important to you. You don't want to be making emotional decisions about money. Far too often we've seen people say, let's get mom that nicer casket. We're hurting. We don't know what else to do. Let's get her them. Let's spend more on flowers. And 6 months, a year down the road, you might say to yourself, what were we thinking? Well, you weren't thinking, you were hurting. So we encourage you to make these decisions when no one has passed away. You have time to think about it, and it's less of an emotional decision. Okay? When funerals are planned at the time of need, the people are going to be emotionally involved, less subjective. They may overspend and feel guilty about their decisions down the road. That's not a may, that's a fact. You can look at funeral homes. They have what are called at-need drawers and pre-need drawers for files. The at-needs are always more expensive because, again, it's those people making that decision with emotion, and they spend more. Even if the person were frugal and wouldn't have even wanted it, people do that. So, again, we encourage you to look at the pre-planning. We suggest pre-planning. Let's put your wishes down in black and white. Let's let your loved ones know what all your wishes are for any of your funeral or cremation services. When I sit down with people and plan funerals or cremations for them, we ask, what did you do in life? Who are your children? Who are your parents? We find out a lot about you. We have coffee and things like that, and we write things down so we know. Okay? That way, if we disappear, they disappear, everyone's gone, this document still lives on, and it has your wishes written down. Okay? So moving on here, medical assistance and pre-funding. A lot of people have to deal with medical assistance in their life at some point. Due to longevity, people today are outliving their assets. Oftentimes they're ending up in nursing homes for months, even years prior to passing. Now, no one wants to go to a nursing home. I've never had anyone say, sign me up, I can't wait. Right? That doesn't happen. But nursing homes, what do we think they cost per month? What's an average cost of a nursing home? Well, I can tell you, an average cost of a nursing home or an assisted living, somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 per month. Very expensive. So I know if I got into a terrible car accident and had a couple $100,000 in medical bills, I'd be applying for medical assistance. So you owe it to yourself to know the medical assistance guidelines in Minnesota. If you ever have to apply for medical assistance, they're going to do what's called a 5-year look back into your assets. They want to see how you've spent your money and what you've done with it to determine your eligibility for the medical assistance. What they're getting at is you can't just give away money to your children. You can't give your kids $50,000 and then 2 years later say, I'm broke. You can do it if it's beyond 5 years, but most people can't plan that far out for catastrophic illness. And I've heard they're changing this. It was a 3-year look back. Now it's 5. I've heard they're thinking about moving it to 7 and 8 years because people are getting around it. They're unloading their estates and then being taken care of by the government while they actually have money. So that's what's happening. One of the things medical assistance will allow you to do, here's the good part. You can protect your final or funeral expenses in what's called an irrevocable insurance policy or trust. It will not count against your eligibility for medical assistance. So we could plan a funeral or cremation service today, apply for medical assistance next week, and it wouldn't affect it at all. And that makes sense, right? We can put away money for the funeral. It's exempt from the medical assistance eligibility requirements. It's exempt from that 5-year look back. And what you can put away for medical or for funerals, according to this, anything reasonably associated with a funeral. Professional service fees, caskets, vaults, opening closings at cemeteries, anything reasonable. Now, one time we had a woman named Mary who did some pre-planning, and she said, Jason, I have money, but my children don't. I've got 3 or 4 kids. They're scattered throughout the United States, probably 20 grandchildren. They don't have money. And she said, can we put aside money for plane tickets for them to come here? And I said, I don't know. I'm not the judge. So we called the county person, and they said, yeah, that's a reasonable expense in their mind. So Mary put away about $5,000 earmarked for plane tickets. So when her funeral comes time due, her family knows that they can get here. They know there's money there for plane tickets. And she knows it won't affect her eligibility for medical assistance down the road if that ever comes up. So just a little story, anything reasonably associated we can put away. Life insurance and medical assistance. Now, a lot of people have life insurance out there. They have whole life, term life, universal. There's all kinds of different things. Well, what happens when I apply for medical assistance and I have a life insurance policy already? The county could force you to cash in life insurance policies you have if you're above the cash value limitations. Well, what does that mean? When you apply for medical assistance, before they will award that to you, you have to show them that you're poor, or destitute, they call it. That means you have less than $2,000 assets. That includes your bank account and insurance policies you may have. So what the county will do, if you have an insurance policy, they'll say cash that in, use it to take care of yourself. When you're broke, come back to us and we'll put you on medical assistance, or sign that policy over to us now and we'll start taking care of you now. The point is you can lose life insurance you have if it's revocable and considered an asset. Okay? The cash value limitations, I said in Minnesota, is $2,000. At that point, that's what you need to do to qualify for medical assistance. And this is exactly why we suggest sheltering the funds for the funeral expenses in that irrevocable policy or trust. Once we get it in that irrevocable policy, there is no cash value. It's off the books. Prior to death, if we place the money in that irrevocable policy, it's protected. Creditors, nursing homes, doctors, whoever will not have access to it. It's solely there to pay for your funeral expenses and assure you will not be a financial burden on your loved ones. Okay? All right. Unique visitations and caskets. This is for fun. Break up the presentation a little bit. It also has the idea it's your funeral. No pun intended. It's your funeral. Make it your own. If you want to do something unique, do that. These are all things that have really been done. Okay, so we'll start here. First one, that's a garbage dumpster. It's a skip, and this place in the United Kingdom called Crazy Coffins makes stuff like this. Not cheap. This costs considerably more than your average casket. It's a work of art. And I'll read you this. It says, to passersby, a skip is a giant metal container full of rubble, discarded furniture, and television sets, which they ignore or help themselves to according to their level of prosperity. However, John Grayton Fisher, a building contractor, regards it as his business associate. On his final journey, he'll feel privileged to be put in a skip and go out with the rubbish. So a little bit different, maybe not what I do for my family, but it's sentimental to the family. And what this reminds me of, too, is a director I worked with who helped the gentleman who owned the Pringles potato chip company, passed away. He wanted a cremation, very wealthy man. He could have done anything. He could have been shot out into space, which we're seeing people do now. That's the new, if you have a lot of money, you might consider that kind of thing. But they had a cremation, and what do you think his urn was? Where did they put the ashes? That's right, it's Pringles can. Absolutely, it was in a Pringles can. And what the kids told the funeral director, they said, that's exactly what Dad would have wanted. It was sentimental to us, and they said because of that company, that's why we have a beautiful home and a lake home. And we have trust funds set up for not only our kids, but their kids. Their educations are paid for generations. It's because of that company. So to us, that was very sentimental, and it hit home. It was heartfelt. That's a guitar there. That's a casket. I don't know if you could see that or not, but just to show you the work that goes into this. If anyone does woodworking, you can know that's not easy to do. This one here is a cremation casket. When we put you into the crematory unit, we have to use what's called a rigid combustible container. We don't just place your body in there. It protects the funeral director from communicable diseases. It encases you in any bodily fluids. Everything burns away clean with you. In this particular case, they remove all the metal hinges, anything from the casket, replace it with wooden dowels. Everything burns away clean. This mother had painted the casket to look like her son's cell phone that he loved. Kind of sad story. Not cheap to get these painted like that. You got to get the guys who do airbrushing on cars and things like that, and to them they said it's similar to painting a car in terms of cost. But they do a great job. This gentleman here is embalmed on the motorcycle. That's a viewing. We're used to seeing this in a funeral home with people laying flat. This is all over the internet. If you're ever bored, type in unique visitations. You'll get all kinds of stuff I can't show you here. But this one's pretty famous. Guy raced motorcycles. Friends again said this is what he would have wanted. So unique stuff out there. Functional furniture. We have all kinds of different things where we can clear out the interior components and then you can be buried in them. Armoire, shelving, all kinds of different things. This one here is called the Harley hearse. Okay, the Harley hearse is a trike that's all Harley Davidson parts, has a trailer that carries the casket in it. And anytime we see this, what do you think we have behind here as it goes down the road? 20, 30 guys on Harleys, you can hear them coming from 5 miles away. And that's how they want this. I've been there when this kind of thing has happened, and it kind of gives you goosebumps. It's chilling. It's similar to the gun salute when they do that kind of thing. So, all right, moving on here. I hope I didn't offend anyone with that. Like I said, it was for fun, and it also says it's your funeral. No pun intended. If you want to do something, make it your own and unique, we can help you do that. 10 reasons why planning ahead makes good sense. These are based off insurance laws and statutes in Minnesota about pre-planning, and just adds to it. It's review some of them, but it shows the why you might do this for your family and the benefit. The first one is it's nationwide. Should you move or need to select another funeral home for any reason, your pre-arrangements are transferable anywhere in the United States. We're a very mobile society now, especially here in Minnesota. We got a lot of people spend 6 months of the year in Arizona, down in Florida. Well, we don't know where we're going to pass away. You know, it's 50% there or 50% here. So we've got different things here. When we set this up, we can always transfer it wherever you need it. Okay? Number 2 is not considered an asset. We touched on this one a little bit. If you do need nursing home care, if you're sued or you file bankruptcy, you go on Medicaid or any other government program, your prepaid funeral is protected and made irrevocable. So we know it's going to be there when we need it. Payment plans. There are monthly payment plans suited to your individual financial needs with up to 10 years to pay. Not everyone can come up with $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 for a funeral or cremation. So we could still show you monthly installments where you're still able to protect the money and freeze your out-of-pocket cost. Number 4, tax-free growth. When funds are held in that irrevocable insurance policy, all growth on the funeral plan is tax-free. You're never going to receive a 1099 form or have to pay any kind of capital gains tax like you do on pretty much everything else in life. This is something, again, the legislature has done. They said we're going to let these grow tax-free. We're going to lock the price in and make them irrevocable and protect them. They want people to do this. They say, what could be more responsible than planning and paying for your own funeral? We're going to give people as much incentive as possible to do this. Number 5, you may change your selections. As people change, so do their needs. Your prearrangements may be modified at any time. So just because we set up a traditional funeral today, a week, a year, 10 years from now, you want to switch to a cremation or change out the casket or anything like that, you can always do that. If it costs more, the funeral home's going to ask for more money. If it costs less, they're going to refund that money to your estate at the time of passing. Because remember, it's in that irrevocable policy. No one can get it, but it will be refunded back to the estate. An easy way to think of that is once all bills are paid at the funeral home based on your wishes, Any extra money is returned to the family, tax-free. And I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself on that one. This is it right here. Money plus interest refunds. Should the value of the insurance policy rise above the funeral cost, any extra money is refunded to the family tax-free in most cases. Case where it would not be, if you pass away on medical assistance and the county's taking care of you, if there's any extra money in your estate, it goes back to the county. With the funeral, it's a use it or lose it scenario. If you're on medical assistance when you pass away, you can either spend that money on reasonable funeral expense or give it back to the county. Most people figure out a way to spend it at that point. Not everyone, but. Number 7, everyone's accepted. Unlike other programs, you're not turned down due to your age or health. So their guarantee issue is what they're called, plans. You can know if you can pay for it, you're in. So it's a good thing in that respect. A lot of other life insurance, as you probably know, has a lot of underwriting, doctors, medical exams, blood tests, all that stuff. So we don't get into a lot of that here. Number 8, protects your family and friends. Your prearrangement helps everyone involved avoid the overspending, confusion, and bad feelings we had talked about. Pre-planning makes good sense and protects those you love. I think that sentence summarizes everything. It makes good sense. We know we're going to do this, right? The ratio of people to funerals in this room is 1-to-1. And you could say that anywhere. You go to a hockey game tonight with 18,000 people, the ratio of funerals to people there, 1-to-1. Everyone's going to have a funeral or a cremation. Who's going to plan it and who's going to pay for it? Those are the questions. So we're all going to do this someday. It protects those you love. The funeral is for the living, we say. It's in honor of the deceased, but it's for your husband, your wife, your children, your friends, your coworkers. They have to go on and deal with this. So remember that. Number 9, provides peace of mind. Gives your loved ones a satisfaction everything is taken care of and will be carried out according to your wishes. So you're going to sleep better at night. This is the biggest benefit people tell me a week, a year, a couple years down the road. They say, Jason, we just sleep better at night knowing it's planned and it's going to be delivered the way we wanted and it's paid for. It's going to take a terrible day for our family and make it a little bit easier. It's still going to be a tough day, but you should be grieving, not answering 150 questions and worrying about payment and this and that. Okay? Number 10, sound programs, sound decisions. Pre-planning is recommended by financial planners, accountants, trust officers, lawyers, and it's backed by an insurance company with an excellent rating. And furthermore, if you work with the right funeral home, they take all the risk on. They say if you pay now, we're going to lock the price in and you're done. Okay, and how do they do that? Well, they're counting on the growth of that policy to keep pace with price increases. If it does not do that, they're not going to ask you for more money. They're going to take a loss. Okay? So it's really a great deal. There aren't too many things out there in life where you can pay now, take delivery when you need it, and get the new version and not pay any more. You know, imagine that at a car dealer. It would never happen. All right, the last thing here to talk to you about is called a travel protection plan. A lot of us travel. Mobile society. If anyone's ever dealt with a death out of state or out of country, it's very expensive. Anytime you work with a funeral home, they're going to assess what's called a basic service charge. They range anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000, $4,000. But anytime you get 2 funeral homes, they're both going to give you a basic service charge. And then you got to worry about shipping and airline costs and everything else. So it can be thousands if you're just going in between states. If you're over in Europe or Mexico, $5,000, $10,000, could be more. It really depends where you're at. But this is a unique plan that's going to protect you and your family from the additional expenses that I just talked about associated with 100 miles or greater death away from home. When you have the travel plan, you're going to be protected from embalming, cremation, funeral home expenses on both ends, transportation to and from the funeral home, airline transportation, airline shipping containers, any documentation, whatever it costs to get you back here to your local funeral home that you like to work with. It's a one-time payment, lifetime coverage, covered anywhere in the world. $449 per person. So it's a great deal. Most airlines, you can't even fly upright for $449, let alone be in a casket and shipped back to your funeral home. So if you do travel, this makes a lot of sense. And what's great here is you can have your body sent back, or you can be cremated or whatever you have wherever you pass away. And if they ship the urn back and you have a pre-planned funeral, well, they're gonna reimburse you a lot of that because it's already paid for with this travel plan. So if you travel, it makes a lot of sense.
This has been a production of Fridley Municipal Television, Channel 17.